Hi, I'm Karima Brown. It's Sunday and it's time for The Fix. Welcome to this edition of The Fix, where every Sunday we hold those in power to account. We tell you what matters, how it affects you, and why you should care. Now, the case against several senior government officials, a former ANC MP and business people on charges linked to state capture has been welcomed. Anti-corruption activists have long been calling for an end to impunity, saying those who use state institutions to enrich themselves should face the full might of the law. Well, the woman who has been responsible for the action starting last Thursday is now joining me here on The Fix. She is the head of the Investigating Directorate in the Office of the National Director of Public Prosecutions. She is, of course, Advocate Hermione Cronje. Advocate Cronje, thank you so much this afternoon for joining me. Many people ask, why is it all happening now? You, of course, have started this process a long time ago. I'm going to ask you, why did it take you so long?
Good afternoon, Karima, and good afternoon to your viewers. Why did it take so long? I was appointed in May last year, and the proclamation that established the Investigating Directorate was promulgated by the President in April last year. And since then, we've been working on building the capability, building our understanding, and preparing these cases to bring them to court. So it's been a year and a half in the making, but it's now there, and there are many more that are still going to take some time to bring before court. But we have been working at setting up the capability and getting it, making now visible what it is that we've been doing for the last year and a half.
Okay, so of course the arrests are welcomed, and congratulations on making your move. You kept your promise. You said publicly that you are going to be having major arrests by the end of September. But it's one thing to arrest people. It's quite another to prosecute them successfully. And you've, of course, had egg on your face as the NPA with the Estina Dairy case. I've gone through the charge sheets of the 7 people in the dock in Bloemfontein, as well as the people in the dock in KwaZulu-Natal. Let me start with the Bloemfontein case linked to the asbestos housing scandal. Why are the people that are arrested not including the former premier of that province, Ace Magashule?
Perhaps I should start by saying the way we've approached the work that we are doing. Remember, the mandate of the Investigating Directorate is to address serious, complex, and high-profile corruption. So it really was set up to target those at the top end of corruption in this country, the people most responsible for capture of various aspects of the state. So we have divided our work into 3 focus areas because in addition to looking at serious and high-profile cases, we are driven by what is being revealed at the commissions of inquiry, in particular the Zondo Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, as well as the report of the Public Protector that led to the establishment of the commission. So we've taken what's come out of there and we've set ourselves focus areas. So we have a focus area for the security sector, we have a focus area for SOEs, and we have a high-profile public and private sector corruption focus. Yeah. And within that, we have looked at the allegations made in various fora, including the State Capture Commission, and our job is to establish cases that we can take to court. So verify the evidence, make sure that it will be admissible in a court, and make sure that we put together indictments that we are confident will result in convictions. So I'm certainly not saying an individual is going to be on a charge sheet or not on a charge sheet. That will be determined by our ability to turn evidence into admissible evidence before a court.
Absolutely. So let me come in there. Thank you so much for giving me those 3 focus areas. We are going to come to the security cluster a little bit later on. But in this morning's Sunday Times, there's a report that says a former acting judge and an alleged Gupta enabler, Refilwe Mokoena, benefited from the proceeds of the controversial Free State asbestos order tender in the payment made through the office of the Premier of Ace Magashule. And of course, that is the Diamond Hill Trading, which is one of the companies that won that 255 million rand tender that was paid out. And it says that Mokwena's daughter was in the US and Mokoena was an acting judge in the Free State when the payment was made. And it says this is the evidence that the investigators in the State Capture Commission of Inquiry have gathered in their fact-finding mission on the asbestos eradication project of the Free State Provincial Government. So you have in the doc there quite a few people linked to that, including the housing HOD, the former housing HOD. You've got Mr. Sodi there. This happened through the Premier. So I'm going to ask you again, why is he not on your charge sheet, given that this is from the evidence of the Zondo Commission?
Lots of factors go into determining which group of people will end up on a particular indictment. The trouble, one of the big challenges that we have had is that there's a mountain of evidence. There are hundreds of people implicated. And so we are required to be fairly strategic about how we approach these prosecutions, how we sequence them, who is in charge together with which group, because the issues of joinder and misjoinder. So what I'm not going to say is who will and who will not be on a charge sheet. You know that that's inappropriate. But what I will say is that our job is to look at the evidence that has been put on the table, determine whether that evidence will be admissible, whether we can leave that evidence before court and sustain a conviction against or implicated. That is our responsibility, and that's the work that we are doing. We are also operating in a climate where there's very little credibility. The law enforcement has almost no credibility. So we have had to make sure when we put these indictments together that they signal to people that we mean business, that we are not just arresting for the sake of arresting. We're not arresting because we're being put under pressure to arrest. We're arresting because we've done the homework.
I get what you're saying, but of course the big important issue here is not to have a strategy to only take cases where you have the ability to win. You need to prosecute those who have broken the law. So is there a case here that Mr. Magashule has broken the law? Whether you win that case or not is another question, but your responsibility is to prosecute those who broke the law. So in relation to the evidence that you found as a consequence of the Zondo Commission of Inquiry's investigators sharing that information with you, has Mr. Magashule in this instance broken the law?
So just to be clear about what I'm required to do, we can enroll matters when there's a reasonable prospect on the admissible evidence available that a prosecution will follow. So you're correct, I don't only enroll matters when I'm guaranteed that I will succeed, but I have a responsibility not to charge people unless I am satisfied that there's admissible evidence that found a reasonable prospect that a conviction will follow. Because charging someone is a very serious matter and has very serious consequences for that individual. So there is a threshold that we need to be clear about. And I can assure you when that threshold is reached, charges will follow.
Okay, let's go to Ms. Nomvula Mokonyane. She is the former Minister of Water and Sanitation, a former Premier, quite a prominent member of the African National Congress. Today, again, authorities are saying that they suspect that money stolen from the asbestos audit may have paid for holiday expenses incurred by former Minister Nomvula Mokonyane and her daughter. Can you tell the country if a warrant of arrest has been issued for Nomvula Mokonyane, and if so, is she one of the people that you're referring to when you say more arrests are to follow?
So, Karima, again, what I can say is we are taking the allegations that are coming out of the Zondo Commission, and we are investigating whether they can be sustained or not. And once we are satisfied that there's a sustainable case, those cases will be involved. I think what I need to say in addition is there are tons of evidence that has been put on, or at least there's information that we are buried in. And so what we've had to do in the last year and a half is set up processes, set up capability to properly analyze that information and properly translate that information into evidence that we can put in an indictment and be confident that it will stand up in a criminal court. So we are prioritizing, and I've told you how we've sort of organized our priorities, and you have seen some of the matters that
okay,
are on our...
So Advocate Cronje, can you tell me, is Ms. Mokonyane and Mr. Mahashule people of interest in the asbestos case?
What I can tell you is they are people who have been implicated in hearings at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry, and so have many others. And our job is to take some of that information, analyze it, and determine whether there's enough evidence to bring a criminal prosecution. That's as much as I can say.
No, that's quite a lot. Thank you very much. There's a lot of clarity on that. Let's go to the case involving the so-called business person from KwaZulu-Natal, Mr. Toshan Pandey, and of course the police officer Nivin Madhu, and two other co-accused, one including a former South African Police Services provincial head of KwaZulu-Natal. I'm looking at the charge sheet. It's a tomb. And of course, this is not an old case, I mean a new case. This is very thorough charges, and you know, you have been saying that you need evidence that is admissible. What is your sense about moving against Mr. Pandey et al.? Do you think you have a strong, winnable case here?
What I can say is that my assessment of the evidence is that it's compelling. It's primarily documentary evidence, in fact. Very difficult to gainsay. So we are fairly confident of our case.
Now, one of the people, the former police provincial head, is not in custody yet. On Friday, we had conflicting reports about whether she was on the run or not. Have you reached an understanding with her? Is she handing herself over tomorrow?
Yes, that's correct. She'll appear before court tomorrow morning.
Okay, so the other big thing that we heard is that Mr. Sodi is apparently also facing additional charges because he was found to have tried to bribe officials once he was taken into custody on Thursday. Can you confirm that it was Mr. Sodi who tried to bribe officials? And can you also explain how he was able to buy a cell phone whilst in the custody of the police? Does that not concern you? Doesn't that speak to the fact that the system is actually vulnerable and that there are corrupt police officers in that value chain?
I mean, Karima, that is a reality that we faced when the Investigating Directorate was first established. Remember, we were established shortly after the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture had begun its work and revealed the extent of the corruption and the capture of various state institutions. And the fact that there was very little accountability suggested that our law enforcement agencies, the criminal justice system, the security sector had been captured. So that is the environment that, you know, we've been working in since day one and have had to navigate since day one. So, you know, I want to clarify that we, as the Investigating Directorate, our responsibility is to ensure that those responsible for capture are held accountable in a criminal court. And that's what we've been working on. There are very many other ways to hold them accountable, but our responsibility is to ensure that criminal charges are brought and that they are held accountable in a criminal court. What There are many challenges on the way to
Okay,
doing
let me
that.
be specific, Advocate Cronje. Mr. Sodi was arrested. When you are arrested, your possessions are taken from you. I've been arrested during the bad old days of apartheid, so I know what happens when you charge. Everything is handed over, your earrings, your rings, your money. Are you not concerned that Mr. Sodi had the ability to provide cash to corrupt officials and acquire a cell phone and make a bribe offer? Does that not tell you something, and should you not make other arrangements to make sure that Mr. Sodi is not able to bribe his way out of this one? I mean, you set the bail at 5. You agreed to bail of 500,000. That's R500,000. This man made R1 billion in annual turnover for something like 10 years. He's very wealthy. He can buy his way out of anything.
You know that his assets have also subsequently been seized, so there are constraints on what access he has to the cash that he had acquired. Karima, that concerns me. Of course it concerns me, and there are many other things that concern me about what we will face as we take these cases through court. But we can do what we do, and when we encounter such issues, we address them. But you know, there are many challenges that we face now and will continue to face in dealing with these prosecutions.
But what have you insisted as the NPA, and you particularly as the head of the Investigating Directorate, what have you insisted on in terms of these high-profile arrests that you've made? For example, are you, for example, vetting the police officers, the hawks that are arresting these people, to make sure that you don't have corrupt cops that are actually, in the value chain as you nabbing these people? These are extremely high-profile cases. Surely you must have some kind of protocol that makes sure that you are not sitting with the very people who've been corrupted by some of these business people, as we have seen.
Certainly, vetting of those who are directly involved with the directorate has been one of the hottest topics for us since day one. You know, we made an undertaking that we would not have working on our cases any person who hasn't been through advanced integrity testing. And we've tried to maintain ongoing integrity testing. But, you know, the criminal justice system is vast. I don't have control over every person an arrested person is going to encounter on their way to coming to court. I am working very closely with my counterparts in the police, in the Hawks, to make sure that we can, with confidence, when we target someone, ensure that they will stand trial and that they'll be available when charges are put to them.
Why did you agree to bail, given that in the Estina case, when the Hawks went to some of the Guptas, for example, and some of the others that the authorities were looking for, they were in the wind. They looked as if they had advance warning. Are you not concerned that, given the seriousness of this, if you look at Mr. Sodi, his business partner was assassinated, was killed in a drive-by shooting here in Gauteng? So people have already been taken out. Are you not concerned that by giving or by allowing or saying yes to the bail, that you are enabling these people to perhaps, get away? It's not a hard thing to get a false passport. The fact that they've surrendered their passports is neither here nor there, quite frankly.
Karima, so bail is a decision of the court, and the factors that a court takes into account to determine bail are set out in the legislation. The issue is, will Mr. Sodi stand trial when charges have to be put to him? Our assessment is that will happen. If that assessment changes, if what you say has emerged since his arrest impacts on whether or not he should be retained in custody or not, then that's the next step. But, we have to make out a case to a court about whether or not we can credibly say Mr. Sodi is a flight risk, or any other person is a flight risk.
Now, considering the fact that he did bribe people, that he managed to evade the search of the police when he was taken into custody, he had cash, he could access a telephone. Should his bail conditions not be revoked?
I think that's the first thing the prosecutor will do when the evidence is brought, is to assess what impact it has on the decision making so far. So I think you know, if the evidence is there, it will certainly impact on the decision to release him on bail.